So we're going to now start the 7 p.m. Boys session. This is for all those people who are tuning in for this. We appreciate it. Welcome to our college recruitment / experience panel discussion. My name is Sandy Pollock. I'm the older boys director of coaching at Tennessee Soccer Club, and I'm really excited to have former players here that we're going to introduce to you here just shortly, who are either currently in college playing or have graduated after playing soccer in college. Really excited about this, excited about the guys we've got, because I know they all want to share, they all want to help. For those players and parents who are listening to this presentation, please feel free to use the Q&A button or the chat at the bottom of your screen there, and we'll leave about 10 or 15 minutes at the end where we can answer any questions that you might have. But I know there's going to be a lot of good information to be shared, a lot of experience to be listened to during the whole process here. So without further ado, I'd like to have our 5 panelists introduce themselves. I'm going to do it in alphabetical order, so there's no favoritism here. So we'll start with JP Armbruster. JP, if you'll introduce yourself and tell them where you played and a little bit about yourself. Go ahead.
Yeah, so JP Armbruster. I went to Father Ryan High School and obviously played at TSC. And out of high school, I went to University of Louisville, but I recently transferred to Belmont University, where I just had my first season.
Very good. Next is Jack Arnold.
Hey guys, Jack Arnold. I went to BGA, graduated 2017, went to Yale University, or currently go to Yale University, and I'm a senior there, doing economics.
Very good. Austin Baker.
Well, hey guys, I went to Franklin High School, and I was class of 2015, and I graduated from Asbury University is where I played at. It's kind of a smaller school in Lexington, Kentucky. So, yeah.
Thank you, Austin. Jake Brown.
Let's see. What's up, Jake Brown? What's up, AB?
What's up, Brownie?
I graduated with AB, went to CPA in high school, then ended up at Lee University in Cleveland, Tennessee, where I played center back, graduated, I guess, a year and a half ago.
Very good, Jake. And then last but not least, Jake Peters.
Yeah, I'm Jake Peters. Went to high school at Hume-Fogg in Nashville, graduated in 2018, and am a current sophomore at Williams College up in Massachusetts.
Okay, excellent. Thanks very much, guys. So one of the things, participants, that I'm most excited about is the fact that we've got a really diverse, not only players from the standpoint of colleges, but they represent every division, from Division 1, 2, 3, and NAIA. And I know a lot of players sometimes struggle with that. They don't understand, well, what's the difference between a Division 3 and Division 1 or NAIA and Division 2 or whatever. So we've got players that represent all those divisions talking to us today. So I'm hoping we get some discussion about that, where we can help answer some of those questions for some of those players and or parents. So the way I'm going to do this, guys, I'm not going to have all 5 of you answer every question. I'll probably just select a couple participants. If someone feels strongly about, well, I want to say something about that, by all means, please jump in. But the first question I want to ask is for JP and Austin Baker. And the question is, what colleges were you considering during the recruiting process, and why did you choose your college or university over others? JP.
Yeah, so I kind of had a real roller coaster of a recruiting process. I committed really early at the summer before my junior year of high school. I committed to Xavier University, and my top 3 was Xavier, University of Louisville, and then University of Kentucky. So I was committed to Xavier, and then my senior year decommitted from Xavier, and then committed to University of Louisville. And then I wasn't getting a lot of playing time there, and I realized it wasn't the best fit. And the most important thing for me was playing. So after 3 semesters there, I felt that it was time for me to transfer. And so after long transfer process, I ended up at Belmont, and I'm super happy with the decision. Getting to play a lot, I think it's just the best balance for me, just academically and athletically, and just community-wise as well.
Was there any other all in there you were considering during that process?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Were there any other colleges that you were still thinking about during that process, or was it just Xavier and Louisville? Were there any others in there?
Yeah, there definitely were. Like I know I was talking with University of Kentucky a lot as well, and then Cincinnati too. But I'd say like my top three was Xavier, Louisville, and UK.
Okay.
So.
I remember when you go through that process, and like I say, there will be a lot of players that may have questions for you specifically about, changing during school and change, that sort of stuff. So Austin Baker, how about you?
Yeah. Kind of the main thing was for me, I didn't really know what I wanted the first part of high school. I didn't even, I was debating on not playing, but I knew that I think that's what I truly wanted to do at the end of the day. And so as soon as junior and senior year rolled around, I wanted to go to a place that I felt like my values lined up with it. So my faith kind of played a big impact in my decision to go to Asbury. And that was a good decision for me just because I wanted somewhere small. I wanted, kind of like what JP said, I wanted to go somewhere where I could play and make an impact. And so that's why I chose there. But I definitely shopped around at different colleges. I definitely looked at, what it would look like to go to a public school or private schools. I mean, I didn't really know what I wanted, but actually Sandy was super helpful in the process and was able to call a few coaches for me, and then got me to where I wanted to be at. And so it was a good choice for me. So it's all about really what you want, what you value, and what you want to do past, post college. I think that's one thing we kind of forget about is like going to school, do it, and that's it. Like that's the end game, but it's actually what's after school is what's really important too. So
sure.
Anyway.
Very good, Austin. That's very, very helpful. So the next question will be for Jack Arnold and Jake Peters. If you could go through the recruiting process all over again, what, if anything, would you do differently? Jack?
It's hard to say because, I mean, the recruiting process is such a big dance, honestly. Like, for me, it didn't happen. I didn't commit till the end of my junior year. So it was a lot of uncertainty and a lot of emailing coaches and talking to coaches and hoping that they come and watch me play. I guess if I could do it over again, I would probably expand my coaches pool who I was contacting. I always had a regular contact pool, I guess you could call it, where I would just email the same coaches every tournament to come watch me play. But it was about like 10 to 15 coaches, and it was a diverse set of schools. But getting into college, now I'm very satisfied where I am. But getting into college, kind of looking back and seeing other schools that would have looked fun to play at and be at. So I guess starting earlier and just expanding my school pool.
Got it. And Jake Peters?
Yeah, I guess I'm really, really happy with where I am currently and how the recruiting process ended up for me. So I probably wouldn't change much, honestly. But if I did have to be kind of nitpicky about it, I think similar to Jack, I would have cast the net a little bit wider, just kind of like at the end, so I could have like a greater opportunity to choose between different types of schools, different sizes of schools, like different locations. I had my heart set on like a pretty, I know I wanted to go to a small school. I know I wanted to be pretty rural, things along those lines. So I think maybe if I was to do it again, I would have expanded my criteria a little bit, but that's about it.
One thing I remember about you, Jake, was you and I met at the indoor arena in Crockett Park.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, right? And you sent me this spreadsheet, I'll never forget it, with all these college coaches, and it had all these columns on this is who I spoke to, this is when I spoke to him, this is what we talked about. It was very, very detailed.
Yeah, that was
Very
mostly my
impressed by
dad,
that.
so I can't take too much credit for that. But yeah, he kept pretty good track of everything.
No, that was first class, that was. So my next question then is for Jake Brown. And Jake Peter, I want you to think about this one as well. Jake, what advice do you have for current TSC players about the recruiting process? For example, things that they need to be doing, questions they should be asking, and things they need to look for. Thinking back to when you went through this process, what advice would you give? Because there's players listening to you right now. What would you tell them?
Yeah, so I think about it from a couple different perspectives. One, like things you should be doing and things you should be thinking about soccer-wise. And maybe this will track into a question later. But the biggest step for me from high school to college was fitness level. I played at a D2 college, but we played in a pretty tough conference where, I mean, a lot of the players are international. And so there's kind of a whole different perspective around fitness. So if I were you, I would be as fit as possible, just showing that at the tournaments that you're going to, that you're like the one busting your butt at the end of every single game, 90 plus minutes, you're just giving it all you got. So from a soccer perspective, I would say you should be doing fitness. Secondly, I think all these guys kind of hit it on the nail with the recruiting process. It's kind of hard to know what you're doing when you're in kind of the heat of things, but I think one thing that's super important is to kind of have an idea of what level you want to play at, how much you want to play. And I don't mean to pick on JP by any means, but Louisville's like a super, super good D1 program. And sometimes we don't get the opportunity to play. And I went to a D2 school. I know AB went to a NAIA school. And I can tell you, I played every minute, and it was the best thing ever for me. So I think one of the things that you really need to think about, and what took me a lot to get over, was oh yeah, dude, I totally want to play D1. I'm good enough to play D1, and I want to go to the D1 school. If that's what you want to do, that's great. But sometimes that's not for everyone. And so I think just through the whole process, taking some time to look back at how far you've come. If you're, a year into the process, if you're a sophomore or a junior, maybe you're a little bit deeper, and kind of think, okay, what coaches have I talked to? What have I liked about the coaches that I've talked to? What have I liked about the schools maybe I visited? If that helps at all. That's what I really wish I would have known, was just to kind of take a step back and think about what I actually want.
Great comments. Very, very good advice. Jake, how about you? Jake Peters.
Yeah, I guess I would say start pretty early. Try and figure out generally what you want in terms of your college or university education, and then reach out to a ton of different schools. I think you referenced the spreadsheet. I think initially we probably reached out to 60 or 70 different coaches sometime in my sophomore year, and tried to get a good amount of them to come see me play over time, whether it be through their disinterest or the fact that I didn't really see that college as a good fit. The list generally or gradually kind of decreased, but also as well as going somewhere based on where you think that you're going to be able to play and contribute in a meaningful way. I think it's also important to go somewhere that you're just generally satisfied going to. If you were a student there, that you would also attend. I guess bluntly, I don't think you should choose it solely based off of soccer. I think there are a variety of other factors that come into play. And so for me specifically, I really wanted to end up at a place that I would be perfectly happy going if I suffered a career-ending injury or for some reason couldn't play soccer ever again. And so all these things obviously have an extremely low probability of actually happening. I think it's important to go somewhere that you will be happy regardless of whether or not you are being able to play.
Very good.
I want to touch on that real quick.
Okay,
just to reiterate Jake's point, I guess this is just the start of the recruiting process. I would really suggest sitting down with one of the TSC coaches. They're all very connected with other college
Ooh.
coaches, especially like Sandy. I had Earl Davidson as a coach, and so I sat down with him sometime my junior year, and we kind of just did a whole brainstorm of schools that would fit for me, both soccer wise, like size wise, academic wise. Kind of we went through the whole charade of like what I would want in a school and what they would want out of me, I guess, as a soccer player. And so that really helped kind of narrow my search from, who knows, at 50, 60, 70 schools to like 15 schools, and that's when I would start emailing them before camps or before games.
One of the things that you all several things you all said there that has been reinforced to me over the years many times by college coaches, and which includes when they come to do we do like college informal Q&A nights each year where we bring in college coaches, and some of the things that they say over and over again is exactly what you guys were saying. Go to a school, if you want to play soccer and you want to play immediately, think about that before you start going to, choosing which school you're going to, because the level at some schools, freshmen going into play, it's very, very difficult. Jake Brown obviously decided this, I want to go and I want to play, and he did, and he loved it. And we've had so many coaches that tell us players that do that go in and play for 4 years, you can still become a pro playing in those divisions. You don't have to be a Division 1 player to be a pro. There's a lot of examples of that. So that's great advice that now you guys are going through this are giving to our current players, is think about a school where you'd want to be as well, just in case soccer doesn't work out. Because when the ladies that were on before you, we had one player that had bad injuries and didn't get to play, and had recovered from that, but loved the school she was at. So for those participants that are listening to this webinar, what you're hearing is fantastic advice from guys that were in your shoes not very long ago and giving you some good information. So thanks for that. Next question I have is for Jake Brown again, and Jake Peters can jump into this. When did you begin your recruitment process? When did you actually start your recruitment process when you were getting going? How old were you, for example?
So I started going to, I guess, ID camps my sophomore year. But where it really started was, I guess, the spring of my sophomore year when my team got into National League. And I don't know how the whole club system works now with ECNL and Academy. Like, that's a little bit past my time. But really started going to National League games, playing teams from different states like California, Florida, Texas, Colorado, and having those coaches, come watch our games at those big tournaments. But actually, so I ended up at Lee University, and I went to an ID camp my sophomore year. And I was like, it's a smaller school. I'm just going to go see what's up. And they actually offered me, at the camp, which was great. So it wasn't too long after that. It was the beginning of my junior year when I had some other offers. But the one thing that I do wish that I did, and this is kind of a gray area and a fine line you have to follow, the coach at Lee gave me a couple months window to decide. And so I kind of had to talk to a lot of coaches and get a lot of other coaches to come see me play. So I reached out to a lot of people. My other top two schools were UNC Greensboro, and then what's that school in Knoxville? Anyway, yeah, ETSU. And so I had them come to a couple of my games, come kind of far to see a game, and then I ended up making the decision really quick. It worked out for me, but one of the things I wish I would have done was kind of be more methodical and maybe ask for some more time. I don't know. Again, that's kind of a gray area. It worked out for me, but it was a pretty quick decision for me in the end.
Very good. Okay.
Sure.
Jake?
Yeah, I think my recruiting process started during National League as well during my sophomore year of high school. And then as kind of I moved into my junior and senior years, I also kind of ventured out into the ID camp realm, which kind of culminated in I attended a bunch of these smaller ID camps, like single school Division III ID camps the summer after my junior year, which was when I kind of got to experience these small schools on a more personal, kind of intimate level, and then also connect with some of the coaching staff. And as a result of that summer, there are a few schools, two small schools in Ohio, and then Williams, the school that I currently attend, which is up in Massachusetts. I stayed in touch with their coaching staff throughout the fall of my senior year. Ended up going on a visit up to Kenyon, which is a small school in Ohio, and another visit up to Williams. But had to wait until probably late September, early October of my senior year before I got offered by Williams. And I guess for those of you who don't know, there's no money associated with a Division III offer. It's simply just the fact that they'll give you a little bit of academic aid. And so I ended up applying early decision to Williams and got in.
For those that don't know, Williams is a top academic institution. So it's a top-notch school and a very successful soccer program in the past. I think the season last year wasn't so great, Jake, but
no, we're in a bit of a slump right now, but hoping to push through.
All right. Okay, next question is for JP and Jack Arnold. What are some of the advantages or positive experiences by playing soccer in college?
I mean, I'd say there are a ton, especially I know AB talked about the importance of, life after soccer and, transitioning into the workplace. And I think just the sense of accountability and teamwork and time management that you gain from being a student athlete just translates so well into any walk of life that you take after college. So I think those are kind of the indelible values that you gain from being a student athlete. It's just that sense of grit, determination, accountability, and maturity, honestly, because you don't have your parents making sure that you bring your shin guards or whatever. But definitely it is also fun being a student athlete, because I don't really put too much stock in this, but I mean, people do, follow what you're doing on campus, and it's fun to be watched and feel important. So I'd say that's also really cool, just to be able to represent the entire university for 1 or 2 nights a week. So that's really special.
Excellent. Zach, how about you?
Yeah, I totally agree with everything JP said. I'd say the best thing that I've gotten out of it is just the relationships with not only my teammates. You get super close because of how much time you spend with them day in, day out. You're probably spending most of your day, if not all of it, with at least 5 to 10 of your teammates. And then in practice, you're spending the entire time with your entire team. But on top of that, relationships with other student athletes, that's a huge plus. I know at Yale, we have the soccer program isn't necessarily the premier program. We won the Ivy League this year, but we still don't get the respect as much as we should. So these other teams, such as lacrosse, who are national champs and whatnot, it's fun to be able to say that you're boys with them and be close with them, especially also after school, as Jake and AB have talked about. The network that you build during school really helps for after school, just for the fact that guys who have graduated before you are now in the working world, and they know you personally, and they know that you're a hard worker because you're a student athlete. You probably have good time management because you have to balance both academics and soccer, and a bunch of other things. But I'd finally say that, yeah, with JP, I don't necessarily pay attention too much to the, I guess you could call it, fame part of it, because at Yale, soccer really doesn't get much fame from it. But it's fun to just be out and about, and people actually kind of like know who you are, even if you don't know who they are. So that's really fun.
So let me ask you, so Jack, so Yale obviously been an Ivy League school. How is it difficult to maintain your class schedule and play soccer, or do you get help from the university to your schedule, so on and so forth? Are they helpful to you?
Yeah, so it's of course it's difficult. It's going to be difficult at any school you go to, though. Not going to downplay any academic side of any school, but especially at Ivy Leagues, Ivy Leagues have a very different set of rules than the NCAA. We have certain hours per week that we're allowed to practice in season and out of season than other NCAA schools, the D1 schools. So that's to help us with our academics. Now there are coaches in the Ivy Leagues, including mine, who find ways around that to get the team to do more stuff together on our own without the coaches. So that takes up more time, but it's always a challenge to balance the academics with the soccer. But I've found it doable. I'm in my fourth year, so clearly I haven't failed out yet. I'd also say that unlike other D1 schools, maybe even other Ivy Leagues, I don't really know. Yale doesn't provide any academic tutoring or anything they expect. What they do when they recruit you for a student athlete is they take you as a student first rather than being an athlete first. So you have to get in as a student. Now you get some help. If you are a very coveted athlete, then you'll get a little bit of leniency, but you have to be able to manage that workload before you even get into a much higher academic environment or a more rigorous academic environment.
Got it. Thank you, Jack. Okay, the next question is really for everybody, because I want our participants to hear the differences between the divisions as far as the training schedule goes during the fall season versus the spring season, and any travel that you have to do in any of those seasons. So let's hear from AB first. What was the difference between spring and fall at your college, Asbury College, AB, and how was the training schedule and the preparation and so on and so forth?
So the way that we did it in the NAIA is you would come about 3 weeks before the season started, and then you'd have a 2 to 3 week preseason, and that's like the best time of year because it's literally you eat, sleep, breathe soccer, and you're just hanging out with your boys. That was probably my favorite time of year. And then you get into the season. So the season will last from about late August to probably mid-November, depending on how far you make it into conference. And then they give you about 2 to 3 months off, and then you start training again in February. You go from February until the end of the year. And then they really encourage people to play throughout the summer, so whichever league. So I know JP and you played for Nashville FC, and then I think I played for a team in Louisville, a couple teams in Nashville, and then so I love playing in the summer, and then you kick right back off as soon as August rolls around. So it was doable, but it was definitely a commitment. Like, you definitely have to love what you do, or love the game, so to speak, to be a part of it. I think that's the main thing.
JP, JP, you want to talk to that? The differences between the seasons and the work schedule, the workload for training?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty similar. It's like such a year-round commitment because a lot of our guys, even if they're not from Nashville, they'll stay over the summer and we'll all work out as a team and we'll play pickup. I mean, obviously not this summer due to COVID, but like a lot of guys will stay in Nashville and we'll all get together and train and do the fitness packet that our coaches give us at the start of the summer. So make sure we're doing that. And then at the beginning of August is like the first week is when we usually report and start our preseason for 2 weeks. And then we begin our season. Like AB said, it goes to mid-November. like early December, depending on how far you make it. And then we have winter break. And I think the spring season is probably perhaps the biggest difference between like us and other divisions. It's because like, I'm not sure exactly like what the numbers are, but you're allotted a certain number of hours that you can train during the week, like on the ball, and that you can be with coaches. And so I know that we're given more hours to do that than say like a D2 or D3 or an AA school.
How many games were you all allowed in the spring? Because wasn't it like one or two? Yeah.
Yeah, well, we had an alumni game as well. So I think we were scheduled to have 5 this year.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so we had a good amount. But yeah, obviously since the spring isn't a competitive season, it's just such grueling fitness usually. Conditioning, lots of conditioning, and then training. So it's definitely a grind.
You love that, JP, don't you?
Oh yeah, love it, always. But yeah, I mean, it's not that bad.
Or Jake Brown will be fine. You want to talk about any differences in Division 2?
Yeah, I mean, I had 2 coaches when I was at Lee, so freshman, sophomore, and then I had a different coach, junior, senior, and it was so different. I couldn't even begin to tell you. My freshman and sophomore year, my coach was super lazy. We didn't even run a fitness test at the beginning of my freshman year, which was mind-boggling.
Yeah.
But so to go to freshman and sophomore year, kind of be like, yeah, whatever, in the spring we'll play some pickup. There'll be some captain-led stuff, play some games. But then when our coach went in their junior and senior year, new one, we got murdered. And,
dude, I bet Drew was complaining so much.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, just total difference. So one thing that we had a lot of agreements, our coach called it agreements. One of our agreements was anything worth doing is worth overdoing. So we're going to overdo everything we do to prepare for the fall to like obviously win the conference and get to the NCAA tournament. And so it sucked, but I graduated, whatever, never went to the NCAA tournament. And then the next year they won the conference and went to the NCAA tournament, and like, it was great and all that. So yeah, I think really it depends on the coach, and you can kind of get that inkling when you're talking to them and talking to the other guys. But yeah.
One of the things I've heard over the years, and I'm just kind of throwing this out here for anybody to respond to, one of the things I've heard from coaches over the years is that a lot of times players will come in at the start of the season unfit. They're not ready to play as freshmen. Any comments or advice or anything any of you guys want to give to any of our listeners?
Yeah, as Jake said, back what he would do during the recruiting process is just come in more fit. Honestly, I think all of us guys would say come in fit. My team's fitness test is the hardest thing I've ever done. Swear to God. Leaves us like, it's all mental basically at the end. Your body is broken. It's all just mental, so you push through. So honestly, in preparation, the buildup is what's important, but it's also like the mental side. So push yourself until you feel like you're gonna break, and then push yourself more, and then push yourself more.
Yeah, I just think it's as an incoming freshman, it's the best first impression you can give to your coach and to your teammates. It's just coming in fit. So yeah.
Yeah, one of the things, just to add to that, JP, because you were one of the fittest players that I've ever coached, and I know you went into college, and I think you had the best beep test of the whole roster, is what I was told. Is that right?
Yeah.
So that's great advice, because not only might you get to play a little bit, but you get the immediate respect of your teammates, of the seniors and the juniors. Is that right? I'm assuming that's the way it works as well, guys. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
If you come in unfit, you get instant no respect, right? So, anyway, good points. Next question is kind of for anybody, is what kind of experiences have you had at your colleges outside of soccer that are pretty cool and you'd like to share? Not soccer related at your college or university, that you would encourage players to think about or maybe get the opportunity to do?
Oh, you go, Jake.
No,
You go.
okay, I'll be quick. And I think everyone's kind of harped on this. It's kind of hard to think when you're a sophomore, a junior, or a senior in high school about after college. But I think me and AB are the only ones here that have graduated. But one of the things I would think about is kind of where you want to be. So the school that I went to is right outside of Chattanooga, and I loved Chattanooga. And outside of soccer is obviously the biggest part of school. So like getting internships is a big thing, whether you're in the medical field, whether you're in the business field, or, you know, teachers doing like student teaching stuff. I think one thing that's important to think about is like where you want to be. I know Jake Peters, and I don't know Jake Peters at all, but he's like, yeah, I wanted to be at a rural school, and like I'm in Massachusetts, and like this is an awesome school for me to be at academically. I think that's one of the best things that you can think about, because like now I make jokes with my friends, like I'm a washed up like D2 athlete, you know, like I have nothing to show for like athletic ability except like, you know, go to or whatever. But yeah, having that in mind, I think is super important.
Yeah, I kind of piggybacking off of that. One thing that we did in college is we started an outreach program for kids in the inner city, where we teach soccer or coach soccer. And we started a middle school soccer team in the north side of Lexington, which was much more the impoverished side of the city. And I always thought, like, I never had been to Lexington prior to coming to the school, but experiencing a new city and like falling in love with that, and then also being able to start things that I was passionate about. I think that's the main thing. Managing all soccer, school, and the outreach, that was really tough, but it made it all worth it to have that fulfillment. But kind of what Jake said is like what you really want to do, because right now, I mean, we're working all the time. Jake, I bet you're working through all this mess too, but it's you really got to find something you're passionate about, and you have to go after it. So whether that's soccer, whether that's, you know, the business world or medical field, it's important to think about, and it's important to go after 100%. So.
And to add to that really quick, it's important to think about that even if you're so dead set on being a pro soccer player. Like I was dead set in high school of being a pro soccer player. Like I would do whatever it took. You got to have a contingency plan. Again, if you have a major injury, if you just fall out of love with sport just because of how hard it gets in college, like whatever it may be, you have to have a contingency plan. You don't have to know exactly what you want to do in high school. But like choose a school based on what it offers like to your interests. If it's nowhere near what, like if it offers academics that is nowhere near what you want to do after school, then but you want to play soccer there, maybe that's not the right thing to do, but up to you to choose that.
Anybody else? Okay. All right, the next one I have for you, and you've kind of done this, all of you, in a way, but specifically anything else you haven't talked about already, what advice would you give to any of these players, young players, and we've got from freshmen up to seniors who are listening right now with their parents. So what advice would you give to any of those current listeners on how to prepare or what best to do to get ready to play in soccer in college?
I will start is that if you want to play soccer in college, because I had probably about 7 guys quit while I was at school here, you really have to love it. Like you have to live and breathe soccer. Like And so that's the main thing is that's all I'm gonna say. So
I second that completely.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Jake, do you want to go?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and say something. I'd say just like be upfront with yourself, be like realistic about what you want and what is obtainable for you. The likelihood that we all become professional soccer players is pretty slim. And while some people may realize that goal that they have, many more will be left stranded because that's kind of all they've accounted for. So just take that into account. This isn't like, I'm not trying to like bash anyone's hopes and dreams, but sometimes you do need to be a bit more cynical, and kind of realize that you do, as Jack said, you need to have a backup plan. And so accounting for that, with where you go to school in terms of academics and just how much you like the school without the soccer aspect is really important.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. And I think if you know 100% that you do want to play in college, wherever it may be, I think it's important to, we've touched on this with the whole fitness thing, but it's important to not only hone yourself like technically and get as much game experience as possible, but also just athletically, because I mean, college soccer is as pretty as we want to play. Like, I really like the mental side of the game, and I wish it could be more intricate and, you know, pretty like we see on TV. But yeah, a lot of times it's just a battle. Like, it's a physical battle. So just making sure you're ready for that. Like, I made an effort to put on muscle, which is a nearly impossible task for me, because all I do is run. But yeah, I think just important to get out there and train, but also like do the things you don't want to do, just physically to get yourself ready for that if you know 100% that you want to play. So
yeah, and I'll speak to that too. I think this is more for freshman year when you guys get there and it's all new. One thing that stood out to me when I was a senior was the freshmen that were there before me and left after me. I know that like everyone's kind of saying the same thing, like be like so into soccer, like you have to love soccer. And I think the biggest difference and the biggest trajectory to success from people like freshmen and sophomore below me watching them was the ones that dedicated their life to it. There's like a story that my coach told me of this one kid. He used to coach at Navy. This one kid at Navy, you know, he came in, he was kind of like not on scholarship. He was kind of a walk-on. But his freshman year, he didn't get much playing time. Then sophomore year, he got a little bit more playing time and like really, really, really impressed the coaches with his fitness and like his dedication. And one night or whatever, my coach at the time at Navy, he was like in the office super late and they had just had a practice. It was like 7, and it's like 9 right now. And he like walked into the gym and saw this dude like running his like butt off on this treadmill. And he's like, dude, what are you doing? Like, we just had a 2-hour training session. He's like, coach, I got to get better. So again, I think all these guys are saying the same thing, like be so dedicated to it that like you're willing to sacrifice your time, willing to sacrifice anything. And if you're not, like, then maybe it's not the right thing for you. And if you are, then like go totally wholeheartedly into it.
I'd also say, as JP was saying, like building muscle, like the college game is definitely a totally, completely different game of soccer than I would say literally any level of soccer else in the world. Academy, club soccer, pro soccer. It's just physical, fast, and not that beautiful. There are, I would say, the point that I'm bringing up is there are very few select schools who can play a pretty style, whatever the match, like Wake Forest, like the UNCs, like the top schools, like Louisville, I guess. I don't know about you guys, but make sure when choosing your school and choosing the team you want to play for, also know what type of style you want to play and watch some games and watch how they play. Because I remember coming into Yale, I was like, well, shoot, it's Yale, so like, why not? And I remember the first year, we just played a bunch of kickball. Now we were in a rebuilding process, so we just recruited a bunch of athletes at that, or before me, they've graduated. We recruited a bunch of athletes just to power us through the Ivy League. And it was just a bunch of kickball. And I remember just thinking, this is not what I signed up for. I wanted to play some possession. I wanted to actually have some purpose with the ball instead of just running. It got better the next 2 years. But yeah, definitely make sure you know what style of play you're signing up for and what you want to play like.
That's actually pretty good advice here as well, Jack. Appreciate that. One question along those lines as well, though, for players that are anxious to play that don't get to play, as a freshman, but they still want to. They're still obviously part of the team. They still, everything else is equal, right? They still train. They still do everything with the team. They just don't play as many minutes. Is that accurate?
Yeah. And when the guys like the starting 11, they on game day, like they'll just do a walkthrough and stuff. And the guys who will most likely come in as substitutes, they'll just kind of take it easy on game day. Like the reserves or like the, I guess, red shirts, if you will have their own separate training session on game days. And it's usually like the most intense training sessions of the entire season. But so we still train every day with the team. And it's really tough just coming in and not playing because you're usually coming off like such a high, like senior year of high school athletically and just getting all these accolades. And then over the summer, you're just like kind of at the bottom of the food chain. And you really have to swallow your ego. But if you love it, like if you're willing to put in the work, like these guys have said, then it's manageable. It's just about knowing what's best for yourself. But yeah, still train. You may or may not travel. It depends on the roster size and how you do that week in training or if coach needs you but yeah, you're still definitely very involved with the team. It's just tough not playing.
But hard work gets rewarded, right? I mean, as a maybe a sophomore or a junior, whatever, if you continue at it, that's your turn in a lot of those big programs, right?
I would also say on top, I mean, I second that, JP, but don't get your head down as a freshman. If you don't play, that's completely normal. The best of the best freshmen play, but those are the special cases. Yeah, definitely. I'm a junior. I'm a senior now. I've had so many injuries that I've been riding the bench. I didn't play at all this season because I was just injured the entire season. And honestly, still being a part of the team and training, just make the most out of the training sessions because whatever you think coaches don't see, they see. And whatever you think they do see, they see. They see everything. They will see everything. And they know if you're working or if you're not working. And it's so visible on the field, off the field. So again, if you're passionate about soccer, if you're passionate about playing, and if you want to play all the time, you have to put the work in and you have to be diligent to kind of keep the lifestyle of a professional athlete, I guess.
Okay, I got another question here. This is actually one that's coming into our chat room. We've got a couple of questions here that people have typed up. The first one is, how understanding were coaches with classwork and how understanding were teachers with soccer commitments? How was that struggle, or was it a struggle for any of you?
I know for us, it wasn't too bad of a struggle. Like the main thing is showing your professor your class or your game schedule ahead of time. So before the season even starts, as long as you have it and you show it to them and say, hey, I'm going to be off or I have to be out of class these days, then they were lenient and they'll work with you. That's the main thing. It's just keeping that open communication with professors on that. That's crucial. And so, like, especially when you have a test on the day of a game and you're traveling, you have to talk to them and either do it ahead of time or after once you come back. And then the key is finding time to study between those 2 dates is pretty tricky, but it's definitely manageable just because when you're in season, you have a schedule. It's like you go to training, you go home, or you go back to your dorm and you study the rest of the night. And so for me, it worked out better. The spring season, I didn't know what to do with my time because there was no schedule. But during the fall, once the games and the practices, it starts to become a routine, and you'll get the hang of it pretty quick. You just have to commit and work hard. That's the main thing. So.
Yeah, I'd echo that. Coming into the fall, we typically recommend that guys take a lighter course load, not necessarily in terms of the number of classes, but in the difficulty level, just because the time that you have to complete the assignments and do all the stuff that you would do during the spring, which is a lot more wide open, just isn't there in the fall. But also for the most part, it's relatively easy to keep an open line of communication between professors, yourself, and the coaches. There are some special instances in which the professors are incredibly unaccommodating. And if you need to miss a class or a trip, then you just can't take that course that semester. But at Williams, we're really fortunate that there aren't any classes that go past 4 p.m. because that's the time that all athletic teams on campus practice. So generally, conflicts are pretty minimal.
Okay.
My case is pretty different from other people. We athletes don't get any headway on classes. We just have to pick classes with everyone else. Maybe Austin is the same way. But so basically we have to choose, or we have our training schedule given to us. Or no. Actually, no. We sign up for classes, and then our coaches kind of give us a general what time our training would be at. And so make sure you don't schedule classes past 2:30 p.m. and make sure you have class like during this block. So normally the block is like from 9 to 2 for me. But we definitely have to build our team functions and training sessions around our classes. But for games, we normally, for Ivy Leagues, we don't travel during the week too far so that we don't miss any classes. So we really only had, over the past 3 years, I've only missed 3 days of school because of sporting events. So it's not too difficult for me, but always, just be in constant communication with your teachers, and just let them know that you're going to miss it. And most likely they're going to be very lenient and allow it, because what else can they say? They can't say, no, you can't go, you have to take this test. And they typically like to help the athletes. So.
Okay, very good. So I've got another question that came in, and this is something I'd like to just hear opinions or comments from any of you. The question was, or the request for me was, can you touch on the point that the divisions don't necessarily mean quality of play? For example, some people just think, okay, Division 1's the best, then Division 2, then Division 3, then NAIA as far as quality goes. Comments about any of that from any of you guys? Well, these listeners are thinking about what school to go to.
Yeah, I'll touch on it, and I'll pick on JP. When I was going into my senior year, we played Belmont in the spring and beat them 2-0. So I don't know what that says. No, I'm kidding. No, but truly there is like a lot of quality in, whether it's NAIA, D2, D3, or D1. My conference was mostly, I would say the player pool was 75% foreign. A lot of guys from France, a lot of guys from Italy, a lot of guys from Scotland, England. So, I mean, like, I can speak to one kid on my team. He was on like the under 18 Scottish national team, and he played at a school called Young Harris before he came to Lee, but really top quality player, and had an opportunity to play USL after school. So, it's just it's about like the type of player and the quality more than D1, D2, D3.
Yeah, that I'll speak to that. So in the NAI, I don't know if you all know, but when I was, like, quick story, when I was 18 years old, I came in, it was like maybe the second or third game, and I'm going up against a guy that was probably like 27. We were playing like Campbellsville University. He's like 27, huge beard. Pretty sure he had like 4 or 5 kids on the sidelines. He's from like Argentina, and just roasted me, just destroyed me, and like just being humbled in that way. So with the NAI, you can go play pro for however long, and then you could come back and go to school. So you either have teams that are really, really good, and you have teams that are in the middle, and then you have teams that are really, really bad. So because we would win games like 10, 12-0, and then we would lose to a team like 4 or 5-0. And so I don't know if any of y'all have heard of Lindsey Wilson in Kentucky, but they play Louisville every year, and usually they put up a good fight. I think last year it was like, I think Louisville won maybe by 1 or they tied. But usually Lindsey like beats them. So, and they beat a lot of Division I schools because just looking at the quality of the players. And so, yeah, I think maybe it's comparable to D2. So yeah, it just depends on what school you go to.
That's a great point, because a lot of people, parents and players, did not know that, Austin. So sharing that information about the age of students, first of all, and the rules for NCAA are so different, than NCAA. So important for listeners to understand that you can find a really, really good soccer program at any of these levels, and don't get hung up on, well, one must be better than the other, because that's just not the case, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a couple really good hidden schools that you just wouldn't think would have a good soccer program, but usually you can tell by the lineup. If they have a lot of foreigners and they look older, they're most likely going to be very, very good. So maybe that's stereotyping. I don't know, but that's what I would go off of. But anyway.
Well, listen, it's almost 8 o'clock. We've answered those questions that come in.
Sandy, we've got 2 more questions that came in the Q&A. Can I throw those out quickly?
Yes, please. Yep.
It'll take a few more minutes. The first question was, when emailing a coach, what are the main points to talk about?
Yeah, I guess I'll just start off. I think it's important, obviously, to lead with a little bit about yourself, where you're from, club team that you play on, position that you play. Obviously, position is incredibly important because some years teams need one position and they don't need another. If you take in standardized test scores or like your PSATs or anything like that, I would include that because obviously if you score higher on those, then you're more appealing to most schools. And then, yeah, I think it's also important just as you continue to correspond with coaches to kind of make an effort to check in regularly or semi-regularly, like before you go to showcases, or if you haven't gotten an email back in a while, just making sure to follow up to kind of gauge interest and also the likelihood that they like see you as a possible recruit.
To add on to that, my coach always says that their job is 10% soccer and like 90% other stuff like recruiting and other office work. So if they're not replying to your email, it's not because they're not seeing it. It's because they have a lot of other stuff to do. So be persistent and definitely just keep staying in touch, because that's their job to actually recruit and to continue building the program year after year. So they will be, they do read their emails and they will be watching for recruits to email them. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think the main thing is utilizing your resources as well. So Sandy's the reason why I came to the school that I'm at. It's because I found it online and I realized that my values lined up with the values at the school that I went to. And I asked them to call them for me, and then I emailed the coach right after. So it's like having all these different connections that you can find with your coaches at TSC and then having them vouch for you. That's huge. So I think that's the most important thing. And so having them vouch for you first and then sending emails out, I think that's the best way to get in contact with coaches that you or schools you want to go to. So.
Well, Sandy, I will finish with this last question. because this is for the current players that are currently playing in college right now. What are your thoughts on the season possibly being year-round, if indeed that legislation passes? And would this have a positive or negative impact on your college experience? So for the listeners who don't know, there's some talk about extending the college season and making it year-round as opposed to just in the fall. So the question is, what are your thoughts on it, and would this have a positive or negative impact on your college experience?
Love it. Let me just start by saying that I would love it. I think it definitely have a positive impact on me and my body, just because we're cramming an inordinate amount of games into a 3-month window, like August, like 3-4 month window. And so, I mean, training every day, playing 2 games a week, it's definitely taxing on your body. And then it's also tough for like the quality of training too, because you play one game and then you have another game a few days later. So maybe you get one like good session in, like you have a recovery session after the game, and then you get maybe one session in where you get to actually play and compete, and then the rest is just match preparation for the next one. So it's really tactical and like just walkthroughs and stuff. And I personally, I don't really like that. So I think if the schedule were altered to a year round, it would just leave more time in between games, and it would be better for us to give us more time to recover. And actually, I think it'd be better for our development as players, just because we just gain more progress like in training over the course of the year. And I just think it's kind of a more professional approach to the season. So yeah, that's my 2 cents.
I would agree to that, specifically because it already feels like you're in season year round for me. It feels like I get no off time even when there's the off season. We're basically just doing the same thing, just with a little less ball work in there. So definitely having a year round season would be nice so that we could have more ball work. And as JP said, developing as players. I would even go further to say developing as college soccer players before just soccer players in general, because like the more you get used to the college game, the better you can play. I mean, obviously the better you can play, but like the college game is just completely different from the global soccer game. So
yeah, I think my view is a little bit different. As much as I like the possibility of like opening everything up and kind of reducing the load, and because quite frankly, even at like a Division III level, it gets pretty overwhelming, just in terms of like physical strain and things along those lines. But at the end of the day, like going to college for a college experience, not like an experience that I would have playing professional soccer or anything along those lines. So I would be a little worried about things that I might miss out on or not have the opportunity to experience as a result of being in season year round. I love the spring. I can take classes that I couldn't take in season. I can do things on afternoons that I wouldn't be able to do in season. I can do things on the weekends, take trips around, like go to different like museums, go hiking, things like that. And so that's kind of what I would be worried about losing in terms of that. But yeah, I mean, personally, I think it'd be awesome, but obviously there is that little bit of a downside to it.
Very good. So that's good. Good, 2 ways to look at the same issue. So, hey guys, it's 8:05 now. So I just want to say thank you so very much for your participation, panelists. I really, really appreciate you guys. First of all, being willing to help us out, and then being so enthusiastic about sharing your experiences, getting ready for college, playing in college, and being able to share that experience with all our players who are on this webinar. So appreciate it. Thank you very much. And we'll wrap it up for the night. Thank you.
Sweet. Thanks, Sandy.
Fun.
Thank you, Sandy.
See you guys.
See you soon.